To all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is the Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Shawn Whittington. I'm a seminarian in the United States Old Catholic Church, and I'm coming to you live from my haunted house, my very haunted house. Been quiet today. Um, I'm just going to throw this out there. Word of the day is bomb cyclone. I have my guest in the green room, and it's just going to be we don't know if we're going to, have her or not. I She was on the first Friday of this month. My internet went down 5 minutes before we went live. I called the cable provider, the internet provider, the cable people. They said that your internet's going to be out all day. And then 5 minutes after we would have gone live, the internet comes back. I was making fun of the elementals on my property all week long about Morgan coming on, and I thought maybe they had something to do with that. And then now, her being in Connecticut, she's smack dab in the middle of that bomb cyclone. It's not as bad as the people in the Midwest, but she's got 60-mile-an-hour winds, snow, rain. It's brutal there. And she's already lost internet a couple of times today, but her signal is, sometimes it's okay for a few seconds, sometimes it's really bad. So when I eventually get her on, we'll see how that goes. And if it doesn't happen today, I was going to take the last Friday of the month off next Friday, for the big New Year's weekend, but I'll have her back that night if I have to. So anyway, um, let's just check the prayer urn real quick here. Peter T. from Washington. I'm considering entering the Catholic seminary. Well, God bless you, Peter. I just did that too. I recommend it for everybody. Any advice? Can you say a prayer for my discernment to help me decide? Well, Peter, I don't know you very well. You must be a very, must have a good soul. You must be a blessed individual to be considering this type of move. And this is the best advice I can give you. You'll know if it's right or not. The only time I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, you just got to do a lot of soul searching, deep, deep, deep soul searching. Look at yourself in the mirror a lot and ask yourself and ask God to give you the discernment if this is the path He wants you on. I'll tell you, it's very hard. I'm buried all the time in studies and classes. If I'm not at my day job at the animal hospital or doing this show or helping people with their paranormal issues or teaching my online class or writing, I'm buried in studies. It's hard, but it's a good hard. If you're passionate about it, then you just eat it up. It's hard, but like I said, if you're passionate about it and it's a calling, you'll be just fine. And there's nothing wrong with if you don't get that discernment and you decide it's not for you, that's okay too. But yes, I will offer a prayer up for you for that. Okay. Brothers and sisters, if you'd like to add some love and light and some good vibes to Peter with this prayer, then as I'm praying the words, just touch your computer screen, close your eyes and bow your head and think of nothing but love and light coming towards Peter and his vocation, okay? In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, send workers for your harvest, so that the precepts of your only begotten Son may always be obeyed and his sacrifice be everywhere renewed. Look with favor upon your family and ever increase its numbers. Enable it to lead its sons and daughters to the holiness to which they are called, and to work for the salvation of others through Christ our Lord. Amen. I offer that prayer up for Peter. Peter, good luck with you, brother, and please keep me posted on your journey. Let's check the Paranormal Ministry mailbag. Angie J. from Oklahoma. Where was Peter funded? Peter, oh, he said he's from Washington. Angie J. from Oklahoma. My dad was from Oklahoma. Anywhere near the Bonita Wyandotte area? Let me know. Is there ever a bad time to ghost hunt? For example, around Christmas. How can I figure out if a ghost is just a ghost or a demon? That is a great, great, great question, Angie. And I'll be honest with you. There's many people in my field and in just ghost busting in general that feel that there's just angels and demons and that ghosts are just demons trying to fool you. I believe in ghosts. I do think they're different. In the many years I've been doing this, do I think that a time or two on a case or two I've been tricked and thought I was dealing with a ghost and in fact it was a demon tricking me? Absolutely. I'm only human. I'm capable of being tricked. But usually you know the difference. And a matter of fact, that reminds me of a wonderful, yeah, I do have that, a wonderful saying that can go by, and you can look this up afterwards. And it's 1 John chapter 4, verse 1 through 3. Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. This is how you can recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. But every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming and even now is already in the world. Um, that is very good advice from somebody 2,000 years ago that still works today. And so, do you think you're being fooled or you're not sure or you're just creeped out on a ghost hunt? Ask the spirit that question and see what the response is that you get. Anything you want to know about my wife and I and our ministry work, go to our website, www.ghost-b-gone.biz. When you go there to see the website, there's a lot of cool things there to see. Keep in mind that my wife and I don't charge for our ministry work, helping people with their paranormal issues. So if you're there and you notice the donate button and you're able to do so, click on it and send our small donation into our ministry. I promise you it'll be appreciated from the bottom of our hearts. And trust me, we'll put it to good use. I know times are tough, but if you can do so, God bless you. I'm also a certified spiritual advisor, so if you're having issues of a spiritual nature, not necessarily attached to the paranormal, and you'd like to make an appointment to speak with me about those issues, there's a place on the website where you can make an appointment with me. But don't leave the website without navigating over to the page called the WSE course/book. On that page, you'll find the Ghost Store. In the Ghost Store, lots of cool things to buy, like this awesome throwback Ghost Be Gone coffee mug, hoodies, t-shirts, other stuff, if you go for that sort of stuff. But scroll past all of that, and near the bottom, you'll run into my new haunted autobiography, God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry. And I quote, scariest book I ever published. That was Annette Munich, owner of Stellium Books, my publisher. But don't let that scare you off of purchasing a copy. If you haven't done your good deed for the day yet, part of the proceeds of every sale of every copy of my book goes to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada, and the ASPCA. So it's a no-brainer. You get to help some of the neediest children on the planet and the animals too. How cool is that? You can get the book a little less expensive at Amazon, but if you buy it off of the website, it leaves my office here. I have a supply of books here. I autograph it, I put it in a house blessing kit, and send it to you personally. Um, Having said that, if you already have the book, and this is a little bit of a warning for those of you, if I was a real estate agent trying to sell you a haunted house. I'd be honest with you about that. I don't know how well you guys can see it. Bottom picture there. We're not sure if that's a little girl or a little boy, but that entity I caught uh, in a photo at an abandoned location out in the middle of the Mojave Desert that my wife and I were investigating once. And since we took that picture and came home, we've seen that apparition here in the house a time or two. It always starts with my wife seeing me here sitting at my desk working, and she decides not to bother me because I look busy. She'll walk into the bathroom or something, and boom, there I am sitting TMI, doing something in the bathroom, and she'll go, "Oh my gosh, I just saw you in the office," and I let her know that wasn't me. And then it's usually followed by that apparition in the book walking out of the office, down our hallway, across our living room. The dogs see it, and then out our back door. I don't get the spidey senses that it's malevolent. Um, Now, here's the crazy thing. Some people that have bought the book from me, only a couple over the last few years, only a couple from Amazon, but a few people who've bought the book from me, from my office here, have reported seeing that apparition in their home after the book has arrived. Pretty incredible and pretty mind blowing. I don't have an answer for you on that one, but I thought I would throw it out there. But here's the important thing. And yes, my producer, my publisher did experience a lot of paranormal activity when she was editing the book also. But if you are one of those people that have had paranormal experiences since purchasing the book and it arriving in your home, I want to hear your story. You never know. Your story may end up in a book or a show or who knows? But I want to hear your story if you're one of those people. It's also a great time to pick up the first book because God, Ghosts, and the Paranormal Ministry 2, Chronicles of an American Exorcist, comes out anytime now. And there's stories in that book that I'm able to finally bring closure to that I left open ended in the first book because I hadn't completed those cases. So it's a great time to get all caught up before you rush right out and get the second book when it comes out. Um, okay. Scroll a little further down on that page, you'll see the Worldwide Society of Exorcists, which I'm a founding member. I offer a 12-week online college level course, Introduction to Spiritual Warfare, through the WSC. And this is a course for all you true warriors for Christ that feel a calling and a longing to want to have more knowledge when it comes to drawing your line in the sand, making a stand, circling the wagons, and putting up a good fight against, God forbid, true evil if that ever comes calling. This is the course for you. No, it's not going to teach you how to be an exorcist. That is a completely different type of course and a course for those that are truly called to that. So, this course is exactly what it is: Introduction to Spiritual Warfare through my eyes, from my experiences over the years doing that. Um, you can enroll in the course there at the website. If you want more knowledge, if you want more information about the course before making that type of commitment, there is a Worldwide Society of Exorcists Facebook page. You can go there, read about the course, um, and hopefully that'll help you make that decision. But if you go ahead and you enroll in it, and the fall class 2022 fall class is almost full. So if you've ever wanted to take a course like that, now's the time. All my students that graduate get a stunning diploma certificate of completion suited for framing, along with some other very special blessed items that you can only get from yours truly. But most importantly, brothers and sisters, please keep all my former, current, and future students in your prayers. Okay, the moment of truth, the reason why
Hey,
you all.
Shawn, just 1 second. You've got a question here from Mr. Anthony Lewis. He is wondering if your classes are still going on.
Yes, I'm taking it's open enrollment right now for the fall class. So now's the time to enter in the fall class. If you miss enrollment for the fall class, if it fills up before you sign up for it, um, then there'll be a spring of 2023 class where I'll have open enrollment for that. But right now, I do have a few spots left open for the fall 2022 class, and you can enroll in that right there at the website. And uh, it's a course unlike any like it you'll see out there. And of course, the instructor, yours truly, is unlike any instructor that is out there doing that, offering courses like that.
Yeah, especially since he's offering fall classes in the wintertime.
Yeah, especially yeah, and the people that are suffering right now, true winter, which I never suffered true winter being in Vegas, um, are going fall class. Um, yeah, I just have a spring and a fall class twice a year, but you can enroll all year long. I get stragglers all year long doing that, but I like to try and keep the group together so that when I send you out your final exam, I have the group together, and sometimes I even introduce members from a class to each other. And they can help each other with studying and things like that. But I'm very proud of the course, and I haven't had anybody want to. You know what? Having said that, in the very beginning, the course was tough, and I had some people that didn't pass the course, and then they would get mad at me. I spent that money to enter your course, and you're going to fail me. So, you know me, the nice guy that I am, I want everybody to pass. So I did make the course a little bit easier. I made the test a little easier after the first year or so, because I want everybody to pass. And if you know something happens and you don't pass, now I know it's probably because of lack of studying and effort. And I'll get on you about that. And I have been known to extend the time a little bit on some people that have not passed, and I want them to pass, and I want everybody to pass because I love my diploma. I'd like to give myself that diploma, but it's not for me. It's for my students. But the diploma is beautiful. I had somebody design that for me, and I've gone through a professional printing company and all. It's beautiful, and the blessed gifts that you get out, uh, graduates that I receive, that I give these gifts out to. You can't get these gifts anywhere else out there, and they're all been touched and blessed by very blessed people. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, what else do I want to tell you guys other than I don't have a show without all of you guys? So God bless you all for tuning in. And but in case I forget, Merry Christmas. That's this Sunday. Um, I hope everybody has the merriest of Christmases and the happiest of New Years, and may all of your dreams and and wishes come true for the new year. And maybe if I have time before the show ends, I'll tell you about my little routine that I've been doing the last couple of years on New Year's Eves here in the house that seem to have brought me my fair share of good luck. And everybody's going, "You're a reverend, or you're in the seminary. You're superstitious." No, not really, but I do have a little routine. You guys might enjoy it. Okay, so we're gonna take a shot here, guys. I don't know how this is gonna go. If it doesn't go, if Zach has to come in and say we're just going to cut Morgan loose because it's just the signal's too bad and it's unwatchable, I want everybody to be able to hear her and experience Morgan. I love her, I respect her, and I want you all to experience her. So if it's just too bad, you know, the picture and the reception and all that, I'll cut her loose and I'll have her back next Friday, which I wasn't going to have a show, but I will come in and have a special show that night and bring her back if we can't do it today. So let's take a shot here. You all know her, you all love her, or you wouldn't have tuned in. I love her and respect her. She's just so cool. I know no one like her. She's an authority on Irish folklore, the world of the fae, fairies, elementals, you name it. Brothers, author, many critically acclaimed author, world renowned author. Brothers and sisters, Please welcome live from the bomb cyclone, Connecticut, the one and only Morgan Daimler.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, it's working.
Keeping my fingers crossed.
It's working. It's working.
So far, so good.
Okay. Listen, I'll apologize to you ahead of time. If something happens and it gets real bad, and we do cut you loose, I will see you next Friday.
Yes. Yeah.
Something's trying to keep you from being on my show, and you're such a fan favorite too. The last, I think you've been on 2 or 3 times since I've
Yeah.
started doing this podcast. And before when I had the radio show a couple of times there, everybody loves you.
It's always fun to come talk with you.
Good. Okay, so let's let's ease into this. What do I want to say to you? Um, it
I
was
feel like we got
funny.
all sidetracked talking about weather before.
Well, I teased. Here I was last the beginning of the month. You were my first guest scheduled for my first Friday of this month.
Yep.
And I was teasing the elementals on my property all week long. Morgan's going to come on. You guys behave. A couple of my neighbors saw me out in the yard talking to nothing, talking to plants and stuff, and they probably think I'm a whack job, and I probably am. But you and I have talked about me believing that I have elementals on my property here. So here it is, 5 minutes before you come on, my internet goes down. I immediately pick up my phone, call my internet provider, the cable company, and they say, yeah, you've had an outage. It's going to be out all day long. So I immediately call Zach and I say, we're done. If you want to play a best of, great, but my internet's done. So I forget what he said to me in the message. He probably said we're going to play a best of. 5 minutes after we would have gone live, my internet comes up.
Yep.
I'm on. So I reached out to you. You were so gracious to accept to come on today. You're in the middle of that bomb cyclone. Um, so far, so good.
Yep.
But when you earlier in the week when you said, I've got this big storm coming my way, I'm like, oh, it figures. So now let's talk about
Yes.
elementals. I know you know a thing or two about elementals. Um, the other night, that week, I'm even the night before you came on. I am asleep in a lounge chair in my living room. My wife's asleep on a California Queen mattress right next to me in the living room. My Mastiff's right next to her. And we still sleep in that living room since when we did have a bad haunting here, it was really active in the master bedroom. And so for years now, we haven't gone back in there and to sleep in there. It's just
Yeah.
a storage room now. But I'm sitting there and I hear my doggy. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. I hear my doggy flap come, flip open, and it naturally wakes me up. And I figure my dog has got up
Mhm.
and went out. And I look down and I can see that my dog's still sleeping there. So I glance over at the doggy door and something
Okay.
jumps back out the doggy door. It's very dark in the room, but I can see something jump back to the doggy door. Now we had a cat. I know people are going to think I'm the crazy cat guy. I've got like at times in upwards of 14 cats living out in my yard. Don't know where they all came from. Don't know why they adopted me, but because my wife and I work in an animal hospital, we brought a bunch of
They just like
carriers
your
home.
energy.
Well, we took the doors off of all these carriers, stuffed cat beds in them, put quilts over the top of them. We've got them strategically placed around the yard under the eave of the house, so they got a place to stay. And we feed them and give them fresh
Mhm.
water every day. So one time a cat jumped in through the doggy door a while back, and that cat would never do that again because it was like the dogs were chasing it around, and it was just not a
Yep.
good scene. Um, and then one kitten, when we had a litter of kittens show up here one time, and one got through the gate area where my mastiff is, and that didn't end well. That was very sad. So the cats learned quickly where not to go. That's the dog side of the backyard and through our doggy door into the house. So I
Yep.
thought it was a cat, but I'm like, I don't think the cat would have just jumped through and jumped right back out. And I've seen weird things in my yards. So And then the next day you were supposed to be on, and then I had the wonky internet thing.
Had the weirdness.
You
Yep.
you you've been doing this for a long time. I'm going to shut up now and let you talk about. Tell us some stories about experiences, why you even got into this. You're so passionate and so good about writing about all of this. Talk about how you even got into this, and if you've got any stories, personal stories about
Sure.
experiences with the Fae, lay it on us.
I have lots of stories. Yeah, I basically got into it because I'm just one of those people, I guess, who's a little sensitive to these sorts of things. So growing up, I actually didn't realize that not everyone, sees ghosts or has paranormal experiences, I guess we would say. It wasn't until I was probably like 8 or 9 that I caught on that for the majority of people, that's not part of consensual reality. When I was growing up, though, to me, that was just normal. There's all sorts of things out there. And I was lucky in that my parents were pretty accepting, I guess you would say. I'm part of the Irish American diaspora on my dad's side, and when I was growing up talking about fairies and all this other stuff, my family was just kind of like, okay, didn't encourage it, but didn't discourage it either. So it was just something that I really stuck with. It was a passionate interest of mine that turned into something I was studying because I wanted some frame of reference. I wanted to understand the experiences I was having and the things I was seeing and all of that. And I started studying particularly Irish folklore, I think, when I was a teenager, and it just kind of went from there. But yeah, experiences. I'll give you one because what you were saying before about the boy apparition that you had caught in that image,
Oh
and
yeah.
that you see sometimes in your house, that actually reminded me of something we have here. And when I was younger, because this is something I've seen since I was probably 10 years old, my sister and I used to think it was a ghost. And we kind of gave it a name, and it would occasionally do helpful things like you're walking in the door and your arms are full and you can't close the door, and the door would close on its own, like against the wind. Things that weren't possible theoretically. So we always felt like it was a helpful spirit, whatever it was. But as I got a little older and I started to have a little more experience with these things and learn more in a wider context, I kind of realized it's probably not what we would call a ghost. Like I don't think it's a formerly human spirit. So now we sort of treat it like a house spirit, which is a thing that some people believe in, which is just sort of a generally benevolent spirit that would live in a house. They sort of need that human energy, that human setting. They don't live in the woods. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And they're usually helpful unless you really make them angry, which can be done, but takes some effort. And we usually see her as a 10 or 12-year-old girl in like a white dress or a white nightgown. And everyone in the house, everyone who lives here has seen this spirit at some point.
Wow.
My two of my children have only seen it as like a flash of light, or like when you catch movement in your peripheral vision, that sort of blurry white kind of thing. I have three kids. One of them has seen it as a person. And my ex-husband and I used to see it all the time. We would often think it was one of our two older children, who for a certain period of time looked very similar to that. And there were a couple points where I would be in the living room and see this spirit going into the kitchen, and I would get up. I have a lot of sympathy for your wife on this one. I would get up to go into the kitchen to be like, kid, it's like 10 o'clock at night. You were supposed to be in bed 2 hours ago, and then no one's in the kitchen because it was just this house spirit, or whatever kind of spirit we want to call it. But I do think it's a beneficial thing, and I'll give you an example of why, and then I'll stop talking and we can get back into conversation. But
No, please. I'm going to tell you something. I'm not that guy. I'm not that host, and you know this.
Yeah.
It's all about me. If I if every guest I had on, I introduced them and they talked for an hour, I would be so cool with that. It's not even funny because, like I said, one, I don't know what I'm doing. Two, I'm enjoying listening to my guest introduce themselves to the paranormal ministry family and talk about what it is that they do and what they're so passionate about. I find that's why I do this. So if you talked for an hour, Morgan, I would be cool with it.
You shouldn't encourage me because I can. I can
That's why
definitely
I
talk.
book. That's why I book you.
Yeah.
One, you're a big fan favorite too, so your fans and followers would probably appreciate to hear from you for a change because they probably don't get this. I don't know. Do you still do your? I'm interrupting you here, but
That's okay.
I you have your own podcast and radio shows and things like that too,
I have
correct?
I have a YouTube channel. Yeah, so I
Well,
do YouTube videos
they probably don't
occasionally.
get enough of you, so go for it.
Yeah. So house spirits. That's kind of the one that we have around here. It looks like a 10 or 12-year-old girl. Um, the general idea with house spirits is if you're on good terms with them, if you're kind of friendly to them, you don't try to make them leave, you don't, get rude with them or anything like that. They can be very beneficial. So I'll give you two stories as examples. When my youngest was in preschool, I was getting ready to leave the house to go pick them up from school, and I kept seeing this blur of motion over behind where our TV is, and I'm like, well, that's very strange. And it was almost like that sort of that white peripheral vision kind of effect. And I knew it was the house spirit, but I wasn't sure why. So I finally got up just before I was going to go out the door and went over to that area. And right as I got there, the electrical cord that was plugged in behind the TV very dramatically burst into flames. And because I was standing right there, I just leaned forward and pulled the plug out, and that everything ended up being okay. But obviously, if I hadn't gone over there, if I had gotten up and left the house, I would have had house fire. Um,
Absolutely.
and I really feel very strongly to this day that that was the house spirit making sure to get my attention. Because they also consider the house kind of their. I should say she, because we kind of perceive it as a girl, but she considers the house sort of her house too. So, she was trying to protect it and make sure it didn't burn down, which I appreciate. And I saved the plug for quite a while. I had pictures of it and everything. The plastic was all melted. It was very strange, but yeah, definitely can be very helpful if you let them. The second example I'll give you is I am allergic to a lot of things. And I did not realize at the time that I'm actually severely allergic to pollen. Because I managed to be allergic to very strange things, to be fair. And I had gone out kind of late at night before bed in the middle of pollen season where I am, not realizing that was a bad idea. And when I came in, I started to feel strange. My palms started itching, and then I realized my tongue felt really thick, which is anaphylaxis for everyone who's not familiar with it.
Yeah.
And I used to be an EMT, so I was aware, but in my head, I was like, if I just go to sleep, it'll be okay. Because you get very irrational, I think, sometimes with medical emergencies. So I did. I just went to bed, and my ex, who I was still married to at the time, he was next to me, and he described it like a bird-sized moth flew directly into his face and woke him up.
Wow.
So he jumps up, turns the light on. He's looking for this moth, and there's nothing there, nothing anywhere. And I had a single moment of clarity where I was like, I need to tell him. And I was like, I think I'm having an anaphylactic reaction to something. And we had to get the ambulance and the paramedic, and it was all very dramatic. And now I have an EpiPen for pollen, which is ridiculous. But that's another example. Like I'm personally convinced that that was the house spirit waking him up, because obviously I was not going to do anything to help myself. And in waking him up, it saved my life. I would have died, is what would have happened.
Oh yeah.
I'm downplaying this slightly.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to sound too melodramatic, but yeah, when the paramedic got there, things were not in a great state. But Modern
That's
medicine, I'm
yeah.
okay.
Um, I get a lot of calls from people wanting to know they believe in that. And most of these people, like I have English, Scotch, Irish heritage in my background, and when I talk to a lot of people that have the same type of ancestry,
Mhm,
they believe in all that stuff. And sometimes I go on these cases where they believe that they're having elemental issues or a house spirit,
mhm.
and like if they just go online, what to do? Usually the advice is all spirits have to go. Let's talk about, in your opinion, does a house spirit have to go? And if it doesn't have to go, does it become? Sometimes they say if whatever type of spirit it is, if it's not malevolent, the longer it tends to linger around. For some reason, they tend to become malevolent. Um, but I would think that if it is a truly a house spirit and means well, trying to get it to cross over or trying to banish it would be something that would upset it.
Yeah.
And then what could you be in for upsetting a house spirit versus like we know what could happen if you upset a legitimate elemental in the yard.
Yeah. 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 Which is an excellent story that you tell, by the way. I love hearing your elemental yard story.
I got another one to lay on you too after you're done telling
Oh,
us what you
good.
think about that house making a house spirit upset or just I'm a big fan of not rocking the boat. I may have
Yeah.
some house spirits here. It's very different than what my wife and I experienced, which even got me into this
Yeah.
in the deliverance ministry field. Well, we experienced that time, which lasted about months, and then the lingering effects ever since we're still you know going through. That's very different than anything else we've ever experienced. So I think having said that, I don't know anything, but I feel I can tell the difference.
Yeah.
And as long as they're not you know making us have night terrors and hurting the animals and throwing stuff around the house or doing things that we just really wouldn't dig,
Yeah.
I don't rock the boat.
Yeah. And that, to be honest, that's kind of my approach too. I mean, and as you know, and as we've discussed before, there's all sorts of different things out there. It's that whole Shakespeare quote, there's more things on heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. It's, it's kind of like you were talking about at one point with paranormal shows or paranormal investigators, sorry, where um, people tend to go into it, with a very narrow idea of, okay, this is the option. Or, there's maybe these one or two options. And I think that, there's really it's a little more nuanced, a little more complicated. I've been pretty lucky. I've only twice run into what I would categorize, what I think you would probably describe as demons. And I am perfectly fine never doing that again. That's not my forte, and it's not fun at all. And I do not recommend it. And, human ghosts, I do think we definitely have, and hauntings. I actually went to high school with someone who had a haunting so bad in her house that they had closed off the original entryway. The house was built in the 1600s. When you first walked in the front door, it was almost like a little mud room. And then it went to the rest of the house. And that was where the energy was mostly focused. So they had completely like nailed the doors shut. The only way to go in the house was in the back door. You could not go in the front door, and you couldn't go in that little room because the energy was just so intense there. Um, and I do think, we find stuff like that. And then elementals, as we've talked about, and, we might term like nature spirits. But I do think the house spirits are kind of their own sort of category, whatever they actually are. Um, and I have always kind of had the opinion that it's us sharing space with them, and as long as they're not doing anything harmful or dangerous or negative, like the things you were describing before, it's always better not to rock the boat. You know, I think that's an excellent way to put it. The ones that I have here. We make it clear it's welcome here. It's obviously done helpful things for me, which I personally really appreciate. I will say there was a point where we had someone staying with us for a while, and the person, with a complicated backstory, had some problems and was not necessarily the nicest person. Didn't really have the best energy, and the house spirit absolutely could not stand this person. From the day they tried to move in, we had the weirdest problems. Like I'm not even kidding. Trying to get their furniture in, we couldn't get the door open. Ended up finally forcing the door open. It broke the door, which has I've lived in this house since the late 80s. I grew up in this house, so never had problems like these. The room the person was staying in, the Wi-Fi refused to work in there no matter what we did. They were constantly hearing noises in the walls, like knocking in the walls. It was always cold in that room, and that's the room where the furnace is, which was always the warmest room in the house, like all that kind of stuff. Like if you saw it in a movie, you would not think it was realistic because it was,
Yeah.
too much. But to me, those are all ways that a house spirit shows like unhappiness. When you have a house spirit that's not happy, it'll do things like that. It'll cause tech problems and cold spots and noises in the walls that were not obviously natural. Like, I know what mice sound like and things like that. This was weird, like people knocking on the walls kind of noises. All this other kind of stuff. And as soon as the person moved out, all of that stopped.
Wow.
Everything went back to the way it was before. So sometimes I think, and there's a reason I'm telling the story, I promise I'm not just telling a story. Sometimes I think when people, especially when they just move into a house and they're having all kinds of problems, I don't know so much that it's the house spirit being malicious per se. It's like if you move in with a new roommate and you and your roommate just do not get along, and house spirits do tend to like certain kinds of energy. They don't like, people who are, not clean, and not just in like a hygiene sense, but just like
Yeah.
hoarder level of not clean. They don't tend to like people who are very angry or unhappy, not in a depressed kind of sense, but just people who live their lives in that perpetual state of nothing satisfies them. Nothing
Yeah,
makes them
everything's
happy.
constant crisis mode.
Yes, yes. And I think when you have that sort of energy, sometimes house spirits will just react badly to it. And I can see how people mistake that for like a negative haunting or for a malicious situation. But I find a lot of times if you just sort of, talk to the spirit and kind of try to come to terms with it, things will settle down. If you try to kick it out, usually that just makes everything much worse. Which is one of the reasons I warn people when I'm talking about this subject. Uh, when you aren't sure, for 100% sure it's a haunting, kind of take a little while to figure things out before you go in banishing, blazing.
Yeah.
Because if it is a ghost and you are trying to banish it, or certain types of spirits and you're trying to banish it, there's ways that can be done successfully, not a problem. If it's a house spirit or if it's, a fairy, for example, for another example, and you go in and go right to the trying to banish it, first of all, most of the things that work for like ghosts do not work on those types of spirits. And you're just going to make them mad, and then they're going to really amp up what they're doing. I have a friend who owns sort of like an occult kind of store, a witchy shop around here, and I help her out sometimes. And we'll get people who'll come in and he'll say like, "Oh, I moved into this house and I thought it was haunted, so I, did the typical get rid of a ghost at home, do it yourself, get rid of a ghost. And now everything is so much worse, and the activity is just off the hook." And it's like, well, I hate to tell you, but it probably wasn't a ghost, and now it's really mad.
Yeah.
So, and there are ways, if you know what you're doing, I would recommend this for professionals only, like you, for example. If you know what you're doing, there are ways to still handle that, and either diffuse it or force them to leave if you have to. But if you don't know what you're doing, if you just looked up kind of online, how do I banish a ghost, and then bought some supplies and tried to do it yourself, it's definitely above that pay grade at that point, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And made me think of so many stories and things that I've heard other people tell me and things that I've experienced myself. Like the craziest thing here, I told you the part about the tree. Well,
Yeah,
back in the day that was going to fall on the house, and I went out and prayed, please, guys, you live here too, make the tree fall the other way. And it did. I woke up the next morning and it had lifted up out of the ground and it was about to fall on the house and it
yeah.
completely fell
Oh,
away from the home. But one time I came home from being out with some friends who were going back to England, and my wife was working that night. She at that time she also had a part-time job as an usher at one of the stadiums here. So she was working. I pulled in the driveway, and I sensed something was weird. And then all of a sudden, I get all these flashlights in my face. It's an actual SWAT team on me
sorry.
because somebody called 911 from my house. I didn't even have my landline plugged in. Um, Somebody called 911 from the house, and you could hear I had three mastiffs at the time, and they were going ballistic in the
Yeah,
home like they were killing something. And the cops were just about to bust in there, and I was like, guys, I'm so glad. I mean, you guys probably would have shot my dogs because they wouldn't have dug you coming in there. They go,
yeah,
well, what we think happened was, I said, nobody could call 911. No one's home. Two, I don't have my landline plugged in. They go, so, well, we traced it, and the 911 call came from your home.
yeah,
So we had to make an arrangement for how am I going to let them in the house. And I said, listen, I'm going to open up the blinds to my master bedroom, and you can look in there. I'll get all my dogs in there, lock them in. You can see the dogs. You can see there's no one dead in the room. And then
yeah.
I'll let you guys in the house, which that went off smoothly. And they came in, they searched the house, saw that there was nothing, still don't know what to think about that one.
That's
And
intense.
yeah, and you talk about uh, was something there trying to protect the house from something? Was Did a burglar get in and call 911 himself because he was in fear of his life because my dogs were going to kill him? Which I doubt, but
Yeah,
that was pretty. That was a trippy thing. And something else happens. As a matter of fact, I just got one again. Either like I still have the scar on one pinky from it happening. Something bites my hand every once in a while when I try
hmm,
to come in my front door. I've looked all around. I've had my wife look around the doorknob. Is there a splinter, piece of metal, something my hand's hitting? But sometimes it's either hand, but it's always the pinky. Something
yeah.
bites the tip of my pinky as I'm trying to come in the front door sometimes. There's a lot of
Interesting.
weird, and my wife's got that weird rock from Hawaii sitting out there in the front yard. I ended up having to take that rock, put it in the nicest part of our flower planter,
Yep.
pray over it, give it some offerings and stuff, which colleagues in my field, they get upset at me for doing this sort of stuff. And when I go out and I sometimes try to appease the
Yeah.
elementals in the yard, they get upset at me for doing that too. It is what it is. Is that if you lived here and thought that that would help, of course I do pray to the Holy Family too, and I
Yeah.
invoke all of that help.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
And some
Whenever I think about you, I think about this. I always think about that famous story, and I can't bring it up. I'm going to bring it up, but we can't talk about it because we don't got enough time. But I always think about King Arthur and Morgan and the
mhm.
changeling story. And I'm going to let you finish what you were about to say. But if we do have time, I was going to ask you about changelings because I saw this crazy movie the other night called The Hole in the Ground. Have you seen that?
That's a good movie.
I
Yes.
loved that movie. But you go ahead and talk about what you were about to talk about. And if we have time, address the changelings.
Yeah, I was gonna say some places just have a lot of intense energy to them. And, as you know, some places you get layers of things that are going on. I've been to places before where there's definitely some human ghost activity happening, and there's definitely some fairy activity happening, and then there's some miscellaneous, I have no idea what it is, activity happening. Because sometimes no matter how long you do this for, you'll run into things where you're like, I genuinely have no idea what that is. It's just not anything I've seen or heard of before, which is always fun. Yeah, changelings, that's a very
And I
complicated
know you have children
topic.
too, and I always think about
I
that. And I
do.
think people that have asked me to come over to the house saying, "I don't think my kids are my kids that I gave birth to. I don't. Can you come over and just you know hang out for a while and tell me what you think?" And usually these people again have a lot of English, Scottish, Irish heritage, and they believe in all that stuff, which sometimes I think feeds into it a little bit. But I've worked those cases too where people that say, "I'm telling you, my son or my daughter is not my son or daughter," and then I find myself looking up things that you want to say to try and trigger a response that would lead you to believe that maybe the lady is telling the truth or the father is telling the truth. But that movie was scary. You have
Yeah.
children. Um, what do you think about the whole changeling thing? And I think the King Arthur and Morgan story, there's a changeling involved in that one too.
Yeah, that's Welsh mythology. Yeah. I mean, change the whole concept of a changeling is that sometimes the good folk, the fairies, will steal humans. And we tend to focus especially on like babies and children, but it happens to adults too. There's another really good Irish horror movie called You Are Not My Mother, which I recommend if the genre interests you. And that
When we're done, send me that message and put the
okay.
title in the private message. I want to watch that.
Okay, it's a really good movie, in my opinion, anyway. But it focuses on a teenage girl's mother who disappears for a period of time, and then when she comes back, there's some questions about whether it's actually her, or whether the fairies have kind of swapped her out, so to speak. Um, so yeah, with changelings,
Do you ever talk to your kids about this stuff and say, warn them about things you should or shouldn't do because you don't want the fairies to get you?
yeah, I mean, I make sure that they're aware, that not everything is a good spirit. You can't trust everything that's out there. You have to be just careful, discerning with things. And, when they were younger, because my older two now are teenagers, things like broom, the plant broom is a good protection against the fairies. Iron nails in the shape of a cross, rowan and red thread, again in the shape of a cross. These are all sort of protections to keep, especially children, safe from any kind of malevolent fairy influence. Um, I did actually. That reminds me of a story. There was a point where my youngest was, I want to say 6 or 7, where he was playing in the backyard, and we have a swamp adjoins our property in the back. And back in the woods where the swamp is, he heard what sounded like a child's voice saying, "Oh, come play with me, come play with me." And he ran in the house so fast.
Yeah.
And he came right to me and he told me, and he's like, "I'm not going back out there." Because we know all the neighborhood kids, and this wasn't like a voice he recognized. There wasn't actually anyone, that he could see back there. Clearly,
That's
not
creepy.
a yeah, not a great situation.
That's
Um,
creepy.
but he knew right away to like nope out of that and run in the house. And he didn't. He wouldn't go back in the backyard, I think, for 2 or 3 months after that happened. When I was in Ireland in 2016, one of the people we were traveling with was a musician, which is another, the fairies are very fond of musicians. And he was out walking at twilight around the area we were staying in, and he heard voices in the woods as well. It's the same kind. This was multiple adult voices, but saying the same kind of thing, like, "Oh, come join us, come with us. We'll have some fun." And he turned around and went right back inside, which is the correct thing to do for all the people listening to this right now. Do not follow the strange voices in the woods. Actually, and there was a recent story on it went kind of viral on Twitter, which ironically was a friend of mine in Dublin who was out walking in a wooded area and passed through like this weird sort of arching tree thing. And as soon as she passed through, like everything got very dark, everything got very cold. She had been in this place many times before, but everything seemed very unfamiliar. And she was trying to kind of walk her way out of it until she started hearing voices. The same thing kind of inviting her off the beaten path. And she, at that point, took, I believe it was her coat off and turned it inside out, which is a traditional protection and a way to break
Oh,
that sort of enchantment with fairies. And as soon as she did, she said the sun came out. It
wow.
felt warmer. She could hear other humans around
I had never heard
talking.
that before about turning the coat inside out. Wow.
Yeah, if you don't have a coat, your socks will also work. Because I've
So you sit down, take your shoes and socks off, turn your socks
no
inside out, and
socks.
actually put them back
Put
on,
them
and
back
then
on.
walk in just the socks, or put the shoes back on too.
Yeah, put the shoes back on.
It's crazy.
Absolute worst case, take your shirt off and turn it inside out. It's just there's something about turning the clothing inside out. Some people feel like it confuses the spirits. Other people feel like it changes the situation in such a way that it breaks the kind of magic that they're using, or whatever effect they're using on you. But yeah, it's a very old folk tradition, and it definitely worked for her. So
The
I will
woods are
recommend it.
the woods are creepy. I don't like the
It can be.
woods for some reason. I never have.
Yeah.
And it just is what it is. I don't know why, but to me, the woods have always been kind of creepy. But I gotta watch that movie. If you think the movie is good, then it's probably really, really good.
I
Um,
liked it. I
Let me
liked it.
make sure everybody knows what your website is, and they already do. But I go to this one, patreon.com/Morgan Daimler, all one word. If there's any other place you want to let people know to go to, I think you have a new book out. And I also recommend, before I say bye, recommend for the first time Morgan Daimler experiencer what you would like them to read first, and then talk about real quick your new book.
Sure. So the first thing I recommend to everyone is my book Fairies, A Guide to the Celtic Fair Folk, because it's sort of a an introduction to the subject, to who they are, to what they are, some basic etiquette for dealing with them. I think I talk about how to differentiate between like a haunting with ghosts and a situation with fairies, because there are some kind of key things you can look for to tell which is which. And I think that's, out of all that I write about, if the subject interests you, that's your best starting place. And then the book I have coming out in a month, the end of next month, is called 21st Century Fairy. And it's a look specifically, because so many of the books that are out there really look at fairies in the past tense. They tend to emphasize like beliefs from the 19th century or earlier 20th century and older anecdotes. And I wanted to write something that would help people see that this is something that still happens, that we still have all of this material. People still have experiences and encounters today. And to sort of talk about some of the things that are different with fairy beliefs today versus 40 or 50 years ago. So I'm excited for that one. I think people are gonna find that one really interesting, and that's out the end of January next
Very,
month.
very cool. Before I say bye, I want you to know two things. You know I love you and respect you, and I already have you circled in. If you have to cancel, it's a ways off, but I already have you circled in for St. Patrick's Day next year. It's on a Friday to come on the show if you're available.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to let you know my wife and I are planning a big 2-week trip to Ireland for our
Oh,
25th
good.
wedding anniversary, which it'll be 5 years from now. But I'm telling a lot of people that I would love to come along, about the trip, that maybe you can start planning or think about it. That's something you might want to do. We'd be gone about 10 to 14 days, going all through England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, haunted
Oh, that'll be a
places,
great
religious
trip.
places, pagan places. It's going to be really, really cool. So thank you. We made it. The bomb cyclone didn't stop us. So
All the prayers worked.
it worked. It worked. I want you to have the very merriest of Christmases, a Merry Christmas.
You
All
as
your
well.
dreams come true next year. I'll reach out to you about St. Patty's Day. And if you've got plans, that's fine, but you're circled in.
Nope, I wrote it down when you told me, so it's
Have a
written down here.
great weekend, a great new year. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me on again.
You got it. I'll see you later. Bye-bye. I love her. She rocks. One final last new show this Monday, the 26th. Susan Ahern doing free live psychic readings for the whole hour. Get your questions ready, type them into the chat room. Get your free psychic reading this Monday night, the 26th. And that's it. I don't know if Zach's going to do a best of on the 30th or it'll just be a dark studio, but I won't be doing a new show on the 30th. But I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I love you all. CommunityPayItForward.us. CommunityPayItForward.us. Go there, find a good cause to donate to. USOCC is my church. We have night prayer every night, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and Bible study every Sunday and Wednesday afternoons at 5 p.m. Pacific. And you find the links to get to those on bishopjameslong.com. Thank you to Zach and Adrian Clayton, my co-producers. I couldn't do the show without them. Thank you to Things Network. Thank you to Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment. Thank you to PACT, little P, capital ACT, Podcasting for All Coming Together channel, for all simulcasting my show. Did I mention Skeleton Key Network? All of them for simulcasting my show. God bless them all. It is bad joke time. I'm going to pull a bad joke that one of you sent in out of this haunted carnival barker hat in a poor attempt to put a smile on your guys' face before I say goodnight. Why did the coffee call the police? It got mugged. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. God bless you all. I love you all. Peace.